Hello, friends, and welcome to Binge O'Clock, the podcast where we watch something and then we talk about it. I'm Joy Selden, and I've seen almost everything.
I'm Danielle, and I've seen almost nothing.
I'm Nella, and I have already devoted way too much brain space to the global economy in relation to sheep because of this show. Like, I've gone down a rabbit hole, everyone. I have some opinions.
You and your opinions are some of my favorite things in this podcast, Nella. I'm so excited to hear about your sheep opinions.
Like, there was actual plot happening in the episode I watched, and, like, I couldn't because all I kept thinking about was, but lanolin and mutton. What are we doing, show?
Also, wool. One of the most amazing fabrics known to man.
Okay, yeah. Let's get into it because, like, I'm hopping in my seat, ready to go on about sheep.
Press pause on your sheep rant. I know it's imminent. I know. I'll try to be fast. So for this episode of Binge O'Clock, we watched Fringe Season 3, episodes 13 through 15. And we encountered really giant parasites that kill their human hosts to, I guess, help save millions, which is the sheep rant that Nella's going to get to in a second. And we had such a sweet love story, like Twilight Zone worthy of this little couple that loves each other across universes and time and space. And we also got a treat with another 1985 episode. I mean, I say treat. It's a difficult episode, but we got to hear the theme song again, which is my favorite part of that episode.
I
as
love
always.
that 80s intro.
Okay, Nella, if you would like to complain about sheep. So the context for this is in the alternate universe, sheep have gone extinct.
Yeah.
Now, my headcanon, I know, you really want to talk about it so bad.
For like
10 years.
I don't even know how long.
10
years, yeah. My headcanon is that they overfarmed the sheep, and then when it looked like they were looking like they were on an endangered list or close to extinction, they stopped, and then a blight took the rest of them. Because that's the only way that makes sense. Like, you can't be this advanced a society and just let an animal that even within the canon of this episode, they were testing on, and they were saving lives, and they were doing all these things, and it just went extinct. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, listen, I've done absolutely no research in this. It seems as though this universe has lost many, many, many things.
Yes.
Like, they no longer have
we
coffee.
don't have coffee.
They really don't have...
Avocados are on the out. Like,
red wine is on the out.
Right? Like, what are you even eating or drinking anymore? But, like, so, like, here's the two ways I see it in my mind. Either sheep went extinct 10 years ago in this universe, and, like, sheep were never the economic driving force that they were in the alternate universe. Like, maybe for some weird reason, this world still developed the way it did, and sheep never became the big meat industry, like, wool industry, cash crop they are, like, vital to human history. Like, these aren't, all right, here, approximately 540 million sheep are slaughtered every year for meat. Like, we are not raising sheep for petting zoos. Sheep are important, all right? There are the 5 countries that are, like, the most mass producing of sheep are, like, as of, like, of 2003, were China, Australia, New Zealand, the former Sudan, and Turkey. And we are talking, like, China, 2 million sheep, Australia, 660,000 sheep, and that was in 2013. And yes, I know in America, we don't like sheep, we don't eat them. Like, we've gone from, like, 5 pounds of sheep per person yearly to, like, a pound of mutton, but, like, the rest of the world, it's still a big deal. Like, they don't eat pork like we do. Like, they don't eat cow like we do. Sheep is it. Sheep and goat. And, like, you can't just wipe out. I mean, so there's 2 ways that this could happen, right? Like, because we've seen mass extinctions in our lifetime, or not in our lifetime, but, like, in like, people's known history, like the passenger pigeon being one. The passenger pigeon was a vital food source for indigenous peoples in America. Like, the Haudenosaunee have, like, multiple songs, like, of the return of Brother Passenger Pigeon, pretty much, because, like, they were these fat boys that were just gentle and good, and then, like, they flew in, like, huge swarms of millions and millions of passenger pigeons. And like, you could just like throw a stone and kill 3 of them. Like, huge, massive food source in North America, completely wiped out. And like, devastating, but we had like different processes at that point. But that's like a bird. That's a bird that we didn't like farm. That's not like
that didn't become a part of our economic survival as a species.
Precisely.
Like,
now, is there an animal that's close enough to a sheep that, you know, per your theory, could have just replaced the sheep in this alternate universe? Like, could they have done the same thing with llamas or goats?
I mean,
I'm just thinking like wool and meat and milk.
Goat meat,
right?
Very popular. But the other thing is, it's just like for wool, you know, sheep can't be beat. Yeah, llama, absolutely. Llama you can use, but like it's too much. It's too much.
And also, as Nella pointed out, llamas are not herd animals like sheep are.
It's like, I mean, when I say they're not herd, it's like you have to put a llama with a herd of sheep to calm it down. Like, they will, they're nasty. Like,
they are. Llamas will think they're sheep until they meet another llama, and then they're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So the sheep are gone. And listen, this is probably a symptom of the writers of this show didn't really think about how important sheep are, because they were probably largely American and thought to themselves, sheep, when's the last time I ate sheep?
Yeah. No, this is a look, like, we know this world has had problems with plagues. Like, they had the avian flu that wiped out millions of people. You know, this is an ongoing problem. Like, smallpox rears its head back in Texas.
Cholera.
Cholera is
how Olivia and Frank met.
I know, which is wild to me, because the other thing is, we do have issues with cholera in this world. It's just not an American issue.
Yes, they had it in, like, Brooklyn. No, Hoboken? I don't know what it was.
It was Hoboken in the show. Mm-hmm. So, like, cholera is a very, very specific disease that requires very, very bad
treatment.
So what you're telling me is that, like, we're not even dealing with, like, oh, there's lead in our water. We're talking about, like, in Hoboken, there's swear jar in our water. Like, literal swear jar. This world is awful. And, like, every time they open their mouth, it's just like, this is bad.
Yep. Boston is just gone.
Yeah.
The entirety of Boston is ambered in this universe.
I mean, actually, that tracks. I mean, look, obviously they didn't think about the consequences of changing around this one, quote-unquote, small thing, because we've seen this before.
I know.
It's just like the latest in the JFK Andrew Jackson sheep rant.
There are just no sheep.
And look, I mean, we are in America, you know, actually a lot of communities are facing issues of, like, be sure to boil your water because, you know, too much rain fell that usually never happened before, and issues like that. But it's just the sheep thing is the one that really gets me, because, like, okay, let's say this was like a pretty rapid, but still, like, it was spread out over a decade or so of, like, we can't save the sheep. Like, there's this just virulent strain of something ripping through the herds, like, everything, like, this economy is collapsing, but, like, that would be such an economic blow to so many countries, and the dominoes that would go down is like, does nobody remember how much we were losing our minds over, like, hoof and mouth disease?
Oh, I do remember that.
And mad cow,
yep.
That happens, and it's just like, shut it all down, and it's a massive problem.
Mm-hmm. And granted, and I think one thing that's funny about this show is they kind of never mention other countries or anywhere outside of the United States. Like, the lie that everyone in this show believes in that universe, right, is that these events, what do you call those again? The world-breaking events that they experience. These world-breaking events that they experience are natural occurrences. That's what everyone thinks. And they think that there's nothing on the other side. And yet, Are they happening in other countries? Probably not, because Walter broke the world there at Raiden Lake. But the show never deals with that.
Yeah.
Right.
If they were happening worldwide, then sure, maybe there's a little bit to that lie. It is a natural occurrence.
I do wonder how much the United States in the alternate universe is somewhat of an isolationist nation. And they just, like, you know, they did that thing where we're just like, well, we're just going to deal with our own stuff and everybody else can. Like, they became, like, I mean, not the Cuba of the North American continent, but, like, you know, they became self-sufficient, and then they were just like, that's it, we're shutting everything down and we're just going to take care of ourselves and whatever.
Right. I mean, I'm just, like, casting my mind back to how often this show mentions anywhere else in the world, and it was maybe the episode with the Chinese fugitives, and it about ends there, right?
And that was in our world.
True. Very true.
There are more than 1.2 billion sheep in the world.
Well, this is the other thing, too. The life of a sheep is somewhat quick. Like the life expectancy of a sheep. So I'm like, if you had a blight or something, or maybe it was a degenerative disease, and like maybe, you know what, I know I talked a couple of weeks ago about like, well, you know, maybe humans stopped having kids. Maybe the literal kids stopped showing up.
I mean,
You know?
we do know this world has issues with like human fertility. Maybe the problem is now you have to figure with sheep. Usually they have one or two. 3 taxes the sheep. When there's a third sheep, you have to take that lamb away and hand rear it because you know,
it
lady
will
sheep
be,
can't handle more than 2.
Yeah,
but like
will be neglected by its mother.
But that's once a year, like that this cycle happens. So like, I mean, if sheep are no longer producing live births, for example, that's a catastrophic, sudden decimation of the sheep population because sheep only live for 12 to 14 years in ideal conditions.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
This is what I mean. Like their lifespans are so short that I'm just like, it must have just come on extremely suddenly, and then the scientists couldn't figure it out. Because like you also we have in this episode, I know listeners, we're talking a lot about sheep, but trust us, it's important.
The tangents are why they're here.
This is also true. The like if you think about what happens in the show, the reason they're able to trace back this bug, oh god, that bug, to the scientist is because he was also working in a lab with someone else who was working on sheep, harvesting sheep organs to graft for human organ transplant.
Something
I don't know.
to do
It
with
was
organ transplants. Doesn't matter.
something science fiction. It was
Yeah.
complicated.
Exactly.
But like, if you have like a lab where this is going on, right? Where like someone is getting sheep in to figure out the sheep to like help the health of other human beings. I feel like that's not being done if the sheep are already going extinct. So whatever happened had to happen so fast. You know what I'm saying? Like they would become a protective animal and then all of a sudden they were gone.
Yeah.
Right.
And like nobody knew what happened.
I mean, like, to me, it's just because it's so fast, it has to be some sort of blight where it's almost like an American chestnut situation where, like, you know, maybe they have a bunch of sheep embryos on ice and, like, maybe somebody's trying to figure out, well, how do we bring sheep back? And, like, maybe we can, like, incubate them in some goats or something. But, like, right now, like, it's not working. Like, the embryos aren't growing. So, like, we're just holding out for, like, a miracle of cloning. And one day maybe we could bring the sheep back. That's what?
But it's been 10 years.
I know. I don't know, man. If we lost sheep in our world, I'm pretty sure that would be an apocalypse. Like,
Yeah.
in fact, like, I'm pretty sure I've nearly read that apocalypse in my own podcast. Like,
Look, sheep are important to this planet. To our economy.
for better or for worse, we have fundamentally changed the face of the earth with animals like sheep.
Sheep are extremely important to cultures and economies, and like industries all over the world. It's insane. It's insane that 10 years ago sheep would have gone extinct, and nobody's like, it's not like everyone's wearing, like their undershirts tied across their foreheads and carrying around pickaxes and giant torches trying to burn down buildings for warmth. Like,
the fake,
Danielle's just shaking her head at me.
the fake wool like industry. Oh, it's so full of oils. Oh, this world is screwed.
I mean, yes,
Although
it is. It's dying. It is a dying world. Like, actually, Walternate should not be attempting to destroy the other universe. He should be attempting to invade it.
Yeah.
Like, go over there.
Hey, maybe
Just run away.
maybe pick up some coffee beans or some sheep or something. Like,
What if you just grab some sheep from
what
the
if we just grab
alternate
some sheep
universe?
from the alternate universe?
I think that they are in the universe that is dying, and I don't understand.
Where's the episode about sheep and coffee theft? The great coffee bean.
Man, that
heist.
would have been imagine that episode where like that's like the spin-off series of the alternate of like
That's the
an
B
illicit
team.
no, that's the illicit black market that like gets their hands on like Walter's like technology, and they're like, wait, we can make a lot of money selling coffee to this alternate universe that doesn't have any.
No, I know what it is. It's the Owl House door.
Yes.
And they just open up that door and grab some coffee and
God,
shut
could you
the door.
imagine if Ida suddenly rolled up in Walter's lab like, hey, Walter, he's not my boyfriend.
I got some more juice. What you got, bud? I got a 4-legged frog.
This is why they can't tell the public about the existence of what we are calling the Blue Universe,
Yeah,
dear
right.
listeners.
I want to write
I don't know.
Thank
I don't
you.
know if they're-
Now I need to write that fic of the Owl House meets Fringe.
You're welcome. I don't know if there are any purists currently listening to the podcast, but we're very sorry. We are calling our universe the Blue Universe and their universe the Red Universe. It is not green, it is blue. I don't know where the fandom got green. I'm so sorry. I think some of your TVs were set a little too wrong and you decided to say green. Or you're trying to make a green, red joke and it's not working.
Red is the opposite of green. I get it. It's all very, but
Blue and red. Red and blue. They are the two pills from the Matrix, and that's it. No other pills exist.
well,
Stop trying to make the black pill.
no other pills exist. Yet.
Yeah.
Anyway, before we dip too far into spoiler territory, we should bring it back to episode 13. Because yes, this episode involves Dr. Silva, who's attempting to raise skelter beetles inside of humans, now that sheep are extinct, because he can use an enzyme inside of the skelter beetles to cure the avian flu.
Which I need you to know, I looked it up because I was like, I'm pretty sure sheep don't have beetle problems.
No,
Their
they're all
things
made
are
up.
flies and they're flukes and they're lice and they're other nasties like that. But beetles are not a problem for sheep. It's completely made up, and that annoys me.
I mean, the skelter beetle is not a real animal.
No, it's not.
Or creature, insect, whatever you want to call it.
I mean, and in the canon of the AU, they even say that it's like a symbiotic relationship with this beetle. And I'm like, I don't know if that's really true. Like, I feel like this skelter beetle isn't benefit. Like, they didn't actually list how they like, how one helps the other. They were just like, I mean, the beetle doesn't kill its host like it did in these humans. And I'm like, that's not symbiotic. That just means the sheep could handle it better than the human being.
Yeah,
sir.
And like maybe what I'll give them is like, and goats being gnarly bastards, like these beetles can't even eat on them because like the
Yeah,
goats
right.
are just like, haha,
Nope.
try eating me. Maybe that's why he's like, I tried goats and it's like they didn't work, so I had to move to murder.
Murder. The murder universe. The answer is always murder in this universe. And so, yes. Well, the other thing, though, is that Armand Silva, the doctor, is, I mean, sure, he's trying to cure a disease that's killing thousands of people. But really, he's doing it because he wants to be just as famous as every other scientist who's wiped out a disease. That's it. He wants his name to go down.
Yeah,
in
he wants
history.
his name. Yeah. Yeah.
At
And
the end of the day.
even enough to, like, quote unquote, bravely give his life.
Which,
for the
like, dude,
whatever.
what a bad plan. Because who else but you knows how to raise these skelter beetles and keep them alive and use that very specific enzyme to cure the avian flu? Like, who else but you knows how to do that?
Like, no parasitic beetle has a goddamn queen. What the hell, show? What the hell?
Yeah, I know.
The queen, as it bursts out of its neck. Make sure they spell my name right.
Wrong type
on.
of bug. Yikes.
Wrong type.
Bug Lady is very disappointed in
I
everything.
love.
Can we just talk
Bug
about
Lady.
Mona Foster for a second? Professional
love Bug
monster
Lady.
fucker. I love her. I love her so much. She wants Charlie so bad. And not just because of, maybe like only 98% because of the arachnids in his blood. Like
Only 98.
Only 98. That other 2% is
literally,
Charlie
like,
and his charm.
Can't keep her eyes off of him. She's so excited to
Oh
be
my
in his
God.
presence.
Absolutely.
Really my favorite thing. But I also love Olivia messing with Charlie in that scene.
yes.
Oh no, I love his blush too. Like he's
Yeah.
into it. And he's just like, please stop, I'm on the clock.
Come on. Everybody's looking for someone who's going to like them for who they are inside, right?
I know. God, I love that line.
Okay,
Very
wait.
good.
So the A plot of this episode is this entire investigation, right? But really, that's just a convenient excuse for the show to get Frank into the office.
Yeah. Dr.
Because-
Boyfriend is brought in as a CDC liaison.
Yeah,
Because
Nella
it could
couldn't
be a
remember his
potential
I
name.
couldn't
outbreak.
remember his name, so I just
No.
started calling him Dr. Boyfriend.
I like Dr. Boyfriend. I like it. I like it better than Frank.
That would be the class in the RPG of the show.
Dr. Boyfriend?
Dr. Boyfriend. Dr. Boyfriend. Yeah, so he
Yeah, go.
no, he comes in and once again proving he's too good for Olivia. I did clock that, like, technically he didn't leave Olivia when he went on this last trip. He left Olivia. And I was like, "Oh no, you left the other one you loved. Whatever, it's fine."
Right. Which really means she left him first.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's and just I'm just going to skip to the end because we probably have to move on to another episode. But Frank proposes and she says yeah. He sort of stumbles over it, but she says yes. And then plot happens and we find out in the worst possible way that she's pregnant because we're worried that she was dosed, but no, she wasn't dosed. She was just pregnant.
It
And
was
she
just morning
doesn't-
sickness, y'all.
And she
Stress.
doesn't lie about the date.
Yeah.
I mean, I think deep down Olivia knows that Frank, sort of deserves to know the truth.
Right.
And that she can't lie about it. I saw her gears turning though. Man, I saw it happen.
Yeah.
Before she told him she was only 6 weeks pregnant. 100%. She was thinking about lying to him.
Yeah. But she couldn't do it. Ultimately, she couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, here's sometimes I have a problem with pregnancies like this that happen in shows like this because a lot of times a television show will be like, well, they were in love and that's why she got pregnant. And I'm like, but that's not the science of the science.
I still will never get over, like, I'm sorry, does birth control not exist in the alternate universe? And you didn't even think, like, is Peter one of those guys that can't put a condom on?
Or no birth control is perfect, question mark? I mean...
Oh my God. What if he tried and then she was just like not interested in this weird alternate reality version of sex?
Oh my
because they don't have condoms in the AU. Like, look, we're going to think about that way too hard, but I feel
We
like
are.
we can't linger on that one.
I don't know,
question.
friends. I just really feel like if I were undercover in an alternate universe, having a honeypot some guy, I think I would be double dipping on like as many different types of birth control as I could personally.
Yep.
Maybe
Yep,
that's
yep,
just
yep.
me. Like,
Oh, no,
hear
I
me
agree.
out. I mean, I don't know what weird STDs you have in this world. I'm coming from a place that doesn't have coffee, avocados, or swear jar. Sheep.
Don't forget the red wine.
Rabbi?
Okay, wait. And then the entire episode ends with this really icky moment between Walternate and Olivia.
Get it off. I hate it.
That's why we just have to like mention it very lightly and then move on with our lives. Because, when he finds out that she is pregnant with his grandchild,
Sickening.
I wish everyone listening to this could see everyone's faces right now. It's somewhat entertaining. Yeah, he shows up. He's already in her apartment, right?
Yeah.
he knocks on the door after Frank breaks up with her.
Okay, he knocks on the door, and I'm pretty sure Brendan already told him.
Yes, because Brendan calls him, and Brendan, because Brendan is evil Brandon, whatever. No, Brandon is evil, and
Yes.
Brandon calls Walternate because he sees this baby as a really good opportunity to lure Peter back.
Peter would never be an absentee father. We've got him.
Exactly. There's been a development. So he calls Walternate. Walternate goes to visit Olivia.
Or a baby that's half Peter could do
Work
something
the
with the
machine.
machine.
Maybe, but what Brandon says over the phone is he has another way to bring Peter back from the other universe.
Right.
Evil Brandon. And now Walter has his claws on a child who is genetically similar to him
And
and will bring his son back.
the other thing is, though, this episode also gives us, though, Walternate's current or hard line in the sand.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
is no
I love
children.
that scene.
No children.
This, listeners, is when Brandon has a breakthrough with the cortexiphan subjects, where he realizes that the only subject who developed powers, because they were testing on adults, is the youngest subject in the batch. So Brandon suggests that they test even younger subjects, and Walternate is like, nope.
Yeah.
Hard line in the sand on that
Yeah.
one. I don't know if you remember, Nella, but this was like, oh yeah, that comes into play because like he literally stops everything because Brendan wants to test on children. Like all research comes to a screeching halt. And he even has a moment with his paramour. I don't know.
Yes.
Look, she's such a good actress, and I'm so mad that she's just in this
completely
teeny tiny
wasted.
role. Whatever, it's fine.
Honestly,
I was reading that she was
Reiko-
only there for like the Twin Peaks reference because they love Twin Peaks, and I'm just like, how
Reiko
dare
makes
you?
me really, really uncomfortable.
I
Same.
believe that.
Yeah. Reiko makes me really, really uncomfortable. It's just this, like, reminder of what Asian women were allowed to do in movies and TV at the time.
Yeah. Yep.
And there
I
it
don't like
is. And you watch it happen for 6 minutes, and it's gross.
Yep.
It's so gross.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but you know, like he has this moment of like, I said I would do anything, but I can't do this, which is actually a really nice mirror for what we get in the next episode, which I'll just jump to real quick, where Walter is considering ambering a section of New York City, and he knows how destructive amber can be. He saw it when he crossed over, and he's just like, I thought I made Walternate out to be this big evil monster, and mostly I think that was just to protect myself because he is me, and look at me, I'm making the same decisions and I'm coming to the same conclusions, and like maybe I judged myself too harshly. You know?
Yeah. I really do enjoy Walter's existential crisis in this episode.
Me too. Yeah, let's stop talking about the bug episode. It's
Sure.
fine. That pregnancy.
Now we're, yeah.
I'm sure the show will give us plenty more opportunities to be completely grossed out by this pregnancy and its implications.
Oh, yeah, that's going to come back to haunt us in a real way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I am sure of it. I am sure those writers sat and they hugged themselves at night with, can't wait to make pregnancy horrifying.
Ooh, look at that delicious wound we can rub some salt into. Let's do it.
Can I tell you, like, this makes me yearn for the days of X-Files where it was an extremely quiet thing that, like, Mulder and Scully had a kid together. Like, you didn't know until the baby was born that it was actually Mulder and Scully's child. Like, it was ridiculous. It was like, nope, Scully's not gonna say who the father is. You're not gonna know. Like, it was so funny how they kept that under wraps for so long. Anyway, I have opinions. I have opinions about how they're going to treat this pregnancy, and I don't like it. But, anyway, Amber, people. Adorable old couple. This is, like, one of my favorite episodes in the entire show.
Aww.
Because it's so sad, but it's also so weirdly romantic, and I love it so much.
It is. They love each other so much that their grief and their love has connected them across universes, and they are breaking the world. Yeah. Now, Walter, because he is the incredibly selfish person he is, thinks that it's all his fault. And he just immediately internalizes it all.
Yeah.
Which is why he goes through his existential crisis.
Yes.
But thankfully...
Which I think is warranted.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
He did break the world. And the...
Fair.
Like, the just because these two people fall, like, having this horrible grief and mourning found a soft spot doesn't exactly mean he's off the hook completely. I think it's a little, it's shake and bake, and he helped. That's all I'm saying.
Thankfully, we are in the smart universe. And so Peter and Olivia decide that there must be another solution to this problem.
Yes. Like, you summed up the plot perfectly, so I think we can just pick out moments that we really liked from this episode. I mean, I will forever just love, not to just skip to the end, but like I will forever love like Peter's speech to her. Although Nella did turn to me about halfway through, because she kind of clocked it about halfway through, and she was like, "Oh no, is there no balcony in the alternate universe?" And I just looked at her and smiled. And then she was like, "What on earth is Peter going to say?" Like, your love is breaking the planet. You need to stop.
No, see, I also love his speech, but I think what I love even more is that his speech isn't actually the thing that convinces her.
Yeah,
because Nella, you're absolutely right. Like, there's literally nothing that Olivia or Peter could say in that moment that would convince this woman to let go of her husband, and they are not able to do it. They fail their rapport roles.
Yeah.
What actually convinces her is when the Derek on the other side says the girls miss you. Yeah. And she realizes this isn't my Derek because my Derek and I didn't have children.
Yes.
And I loved that. I loved that the speech was special and important, and we needed to hear it, and Olivia needed to hear it clearly. Mm-hmm. But it did nothing narratively.
Yes.
I mean, I think it put, so obviously it was important they were there. It gave her a nugget of doubt. And, there is a moment of, like, trying to explain the unexplainable to someone who's experiencing that level of emotional entanglement. And, like, she couldn't even understand what they were saying, but she was also just like, how could you expect me to let go of my, my husband of, I think it was 40 years, 50 years? 47 years? Yeah, 45
years.
And, like, yeah, duh.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that they were able, because sometimes what you need is somebody to point out that something is awry and something is amiss, for you to have that one moment to actually listen to the thing the other person is saying, and you pick up that it's wrong. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And, like,
yeah.
I feel like she hasn't talked to him before. Like, I feel like that was new. That was part of the crack widening.
Mm-hmm.
And their grief just taking over so completely that they could actually speak to each other.
Yeah.
So I think that was also a piece of it where it's just like, she might have never known had he not been able to say anything,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, I love that. I also, as morbid as it is, I really love how the balcony disappears and then reappears.
Yes.
Oh, I definitely thought you were going to mention what Walter's little throwaway line when he realizes how exactly that happens. Because it is a pretty terrible little throwaway line.
Wait, which one was it? Remind me.
He finds out how everyone died, and then he goes, like a flash mob of suicide.
Yes.
Walter,
I
my man.
That. I do remember hearing him say that and being like, I know you're playing matchmaker and your adrenaline's a little high right now, but maybe you need to stop.
Well, I mean, speaking of his adrenaline being high, I actually really love that childish moment where Peter and Walter are both looking over the edge of the balcony and they realize, well, these people didn't jump because they would have landed further out from the balcony rather than directly below it. And Walter immediately starts jumping and then, like, pushing on the sides of the balcony.
Peter's
just like, let's not test fate here, buddy. And because he's a scientist, of course he's going to test it immediately. Like, he's going to jump. He's going to jump up and down and see what the stability's like. How
is it really solid?
Of course he is. Like a child. Like a child.
So I really enjoyed Walter in this entire episode, even though he was being really pushy with that whole breakfast business. And I don't think that it was actually a good choice on his part. I guess, it did kind of propel Olivia and Peter forward a little bit.
I think it was important that they had the chat they had. I don't know that they would have talked about everything the way they did if Walter hadn't been very bad at trying to get them together.
He literally makes a whole breakfast, and then when Olivia arrives, you notice that he's put these 2 long candles on the table. He's turned on romantic music, and he just leaves. Bye.
He just leaves.
And so Peter and Olivia did have an argument. Mm-hmm.
You know what? They do. And Peter finally gets to sort of say, Olivia gets to, I guess, somewhat confront him. I hate using that word, but I guess confront him about, like, you do still think about her and you have feelings for her. And he just has to correct her again of, like, yeah, I do still think about her, but you're misunderstanding the context. Like, I wanted to be with you and I thought I was. And, like, now you're here, so why aren't we together? Yeah. Like, and he's not pushy about it exactly, but he's definitely like, I'm not the one standing in our way.
Right,
like,
exactly. And neither is she because she's not here anymore.
Exactly. And I don't know, I liked it. Our babies are growing. They're talking about their feelings.
Yeah.
And, it's a tough conversation. It's really hard with what they've been through. And it's not like Olivia's not happy about it. Peter's not happy about it. Nobody likes talking about it. But, like, it forced them into talking about it. And I don't know. I think it helped. I liked also that she gets scared when she sees him glimmer. And it, like, reminds her of, like, oh, God, no, but maybe I am the one standing in our way. And maybe I'll never be able to open up my walls. Oh, no.
And listen, I don't know if other viewers actually liked this because I know it was very much like hearing the same arguments over and over again. But I think that like, character-wise, Peter and Olivia needed to have that conversation 4 separate times.
Yeah.
Before finally arriving at, well, the conclusion of the argument, which is that Olivia arrives at Peter's door late at night, bottle of whiskey in hand, and their relationship moves forward.
And goes for it.
And PG-13 show.
And goes upstairs to play Monopoly. to play doctor. No, I'm kidding. No, to... I don't know. There's something about it I really like. And it's such a normal... I mean, look, I know the show dragged it out because it's a show and it's ratings and the will they, won't they, and a blah, blah, blah. But it also felt very realistic. Like,
that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Like, one conversation with Olivia never would have convinced her that it was time to get in a relationship with Peter. Our Olivia needs time to unpack her feelings. And she needs time to process, and she needs time to not be in denial anymore.
But I mean, there's also time to, like, trust again. Mm-hmm. And Peter allowed her to have that time. And, like, this is also something that I don't think Peter admitted before either, which was, like, he never wanted to be one of the things that she didn't trust. He never wanted to be a reason for her to pull back and to hide. Mm-hmm. That was never his intention. And, like, the fact that this happened because of forces beyond his control doesn't change the fact that she's still upset about it. You know? Mm-hmm. And I like the way he handled it, and I liked how gentle he was while also being like, I'm not the one standing in our way.
Right, like gentle and honest. Yeah. Gentle and straightforward with her.
Yeah. Yes. And direct.
And that's huge. I mean, I do really enjoy, like, Peter's got a lot of emotional just
hang-ups?
No, not hang-ups. Like, he's really good at this, actually. It's awful. It's awful that it's happening. But, like, he's kind of a good example of, okay, but this is kind of what you have to do. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to clearly state your own need, like what you want or your own needs, like, but then also like give the other person room to feel what they're feeling too. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yeah. I just really like it. I really like, I mean, Lord knows I hated how we got here, but like, I do feel at least the show put time and energy into the implications of their relationship, and like it's not going to be what it could have been, but it's still possible to have something together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't wait for you to see Walter's reaction to them being together.
Oh no,
it's gonna be great. No spoilers, but it's gonna be great. Okay.
Now Peter's feelings actually lead us pretty nicely into Subject 13, the next episode.
Oh boy. So this episode whereas it's tough. But I like the other 1985 episode better, even though it has some inconsistencies with season 1, for example, Dr. Carla Warren. But like this one also feels weirdly out of place because I don't know this is going to sound so weird. I don't know if William Bell was experimenting on children before Walter's son died and before he kidnapped Peter from the alternate universe. So 6 months later, there are these children being experimented on in Florida that he's just like, well, maybe we can use them to our advantage. Like, I don't know that the Cortexiphan started because of Peter or not.
Yeah.
And I'm confused.
No, I think that's fair because in season 1, I think that the story that the show tells is these were Belly's experiments, right?
Yes.
This was William Bell was the one leading the charge on all of this. Yeah. And then in this episode, he's weirdly absent. I mean, much as he had been all throughout the previous seasons, right? And Walter is really the one leading the charge. And Walter is the one who suggests that they keep sending Olivia back to her abusive home.
Yep.
To cement the relationship between love and terror in her brain and make her a useful subject in this experiment.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. I didn't like that spin on, like, you know, like, the reason I enjoy that, like, when she sees the glimmer on Peter, it means she's afraid and, like, she's actually in touch with her emotions for a change. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, she understands what's happening because she's afraid of opening up and being vulnerable and all these other things. Mm-hmm. I don't like that the very next episode, they turn that into, like, and she has to have this, love and fear because her stepfather is abusing her.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
it's so upsetting.
That
Yeah.
the
I'm not
roots of
here
it.
for it. And like Walter, like also having watched the show, Walter's little thing at the end doesn't even make any sense because he continues abusing her.
Yeah.
He
does.
even into adulthood, he continues to like manipulate her and send her a card on her birthday every year.
Which, listen, tracks because Walter
True.
absolutely should have reported that man
Yeah.
immediately, sent him away, and separated Olivia from him. Because giving an abusive person one warning like that and telling them you have government friends is not going to solve this problem. It
No.
doesn't make any sense. And so, no, it actually like makes perfect sense that that does not work and Olivia continues to be abused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
it was just...
he's not a social worker. He's not a child psychiatrist. He's Walter. He's experimenting on kids. He doesn't.
He's a
he has no
scientist. I know.
concept of the evils of man when he himself experiments on kids.
They're not wrong.
Fair.
His compass for what's right or wrong is absolutely mucked.
Extremely. No, you're right. You're right. You're right.
It's bad,
The whole episode just rubs me the wrong way. And of course, the constant gaslighting of Peter.
Yes.
And yep, and the mom is kind of a victim in all of this, but I don't know.
Look, I do enjoy them emphasizing that Walter and Elizabeth know what they did was wrong. Like, yes, we saved Peter. We have to get him back. We have to get him back. It's been 6 months. We're lying to like he's not so young that he knows that this isn't his world. Like we've created a massive problem and we have to fix it and we can't fix it fast enough. I do enjoy that they did that instead of what I was so afraid they were going to do, which was making Elizabeth the hysterical woman of like, no, but he's our son and we have to keep him. Or them both agreeing to that. Instead, they both are the adults who realize, no, this is bad. We can't keep him. But now we have to keep him because we don't have a good way to send him back.
Right. I also really first of all, I really love the actress who plays Elizabeth.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm blanking on her name.
I don't know anyone's names.
It's fine. It's fine. I adore her, and she's wonderful, and I've seen her in a million things, and she's great. What I particularly love about the way she plays Elizabeth is any breakdown of her like mask of being Peter's mother happens without Peter in the room. And she's very good at, obviously very good at turning her concern for him into a mother's concern so that it doesn't look like, anything that will immediately, just destroy this little boy. Because ultimately, I think they can't. Like, I think they can't look at a little boy like that and who looks so much like their son and, even tell him the truth because it's like, what on earth do you tell him?
Yeah.
Right. And even if you did tell him the truth, what are they expecting him to do with that? He can't process that.
Nope.
He can't just live with the fact that he's in the wrong world.
Yeah.
So she finally lies to him to his face, looking him in the eye at the end of the episode, which up until this point, I think the idea is that she had just kind of been skirting the question and passing his little tests and quizzes and doing her best to convince him otherwise without looking him in the eye and saying, I am your mom. Now, what a little bit bothers me about this episode is I know that the brain is very special and is a very, very powerful thing. I don't think it makes any sense that Peter and Olivia don't remember any of this.
Maybe Olivia, maybe trauma and like the Cortex fan. But Peter doesn't remember this?
I don't think it makes any sense that they don't remember any of this.
No.
I will say, here's what I'll say. Olivia 100% wouldn't remember it because Cortexiphan trials were in a box 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 in her brain.
Yeah.
She barely remembers anything even now. Like, she just kind of goes through the motions and can tap into what happened to her as a child, but she doesn't really remember.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Also, but okay. Think about this for a second from Peter's perspective. Like, they're down there. He's not really being told what his father's doing down there. Maybe he meets a couple of kids. He meets Olivia for all of, 15 seconds. And, has maybe 15 minutes or whatever, has a conversation with her. He doesn't even play with these children. But, can you think back to when you were, maybe you went to a park and you played with a kid for an hour and then you went home? Do you remember that kid's name?
I mean, but this is more than going to a park.
In a swear jar. Field full of lilies because she ran away and I ran away too, and then it started snowing in Jacksonville, Florida.
And they had to walk all the way back to to the daycare center. It was a really long walk. We know they were probably talking the whole way. On top of which, she was sitting in a circle of burning tulips because she was still warm enough to destroy the vegetation around her. This feels like a big thing to forget.
I mean, fair. Look,
he went through her sketchbook and picked the one that looked happy.
The one that was happy.
There's a lot. There's a lot to unpack aside from we played together in a playground. Okay, to me these aren't 3-year-olds. It's not they're 8.
I mean, but I went to sleepaway camp, and every now and then there's oh yeah, I made tons of friends with these kids that I stayed with for 3 weeks. I don't remember their names when I was 31. I don't remember anybody, and that was we slept in the same room for 3 weeks.
Now, we could also argue that, Peter is going through his own trauma response because,
yes, this was the other thing I was going to bring up, is because, he also shut down so much about his father.
Yeah.
Completely. He didn't even remember being from an alternate universe. He didn't remember things being different as a child, except for little anecdotes here and there. He basically ran away at 17, and then a couple of years later, his mom commit suicide, and then several years later he has to break his father out of St. Clair's.
Right.
He left, but he ran as far away from it as possible.
I remember my first time watching this show. Up until this episode, my understanding of that was, well, of course he forgot that all of this happened because he never realized he was from another world. Because if you were a child who was in and out of being sick, in and out of hospitals, in and out of whatever, and then all of a sudden you wake up and you're healthy and well, and you're in a house that looks like yours, and and your grown-ups are still your grown-ups, and blah, 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 blah. You would just think oh, okay, weird, and move on with your life.
Yeah.
But this episode cements the fact that he spent a really long time questioning his reality. But you're right. He absolutely could have just pushed that down because the brain is a special thing and trauma is a special place.
Now, look,
I don't feel like we needed this episode fundamentally. We didn't need Peter in this episode.
Exactly. This is my biggest problem with this episode because it messes with the timeline in ways that just do not make sense. I would rather
make Peter and Olivia this,
exactly
a fairy tale. They were soulmates meant to be together. Blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense.
No.
At the beginning of this episode, we were at Raiden Lake. They could have stayed at Raiden Lake. He didn't even have to meet Olivia. He didn't have to go down to Florida.
Precisely.
None of that makes sense. The one time Peter saves Olivia, but doesn't even really save her. Just make sure she goes back to the adults.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I agree with y'all that why wouldn't they remember that? But also this episode doesn't make sense on so many levels.
Yeah.
And it doesn't.
And I think that's just happens to be the detail that my brain has latched onto as the thing that doesn't make sense. But you're right. It's just the whole thing.
I mean, the whole purpose of the episode is to get us to that closing scene where baby Olivia goes running into Walter's office crying about how she can't go back. He can't make her go back. Please, you have to save me. And then blink, she was talking to Walternate who is been drinking. His marriage is suffering. He doesn't understand where his son could have gone. You know, he's gone over the account from his wife over and over again. He knows he has to believe her, but there's just that part of him that just goes, there has to be something else we've forgotten. There's something, it could be plastic surgery.
There's an element we're not seeing.
Yeah. And then this episode solves that problem of, but how does Walter even know about the alternate universe? How does he know his son is there? And this is how.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That Olivia has a moment, thinks that she's talking to Walter, and is actually talking to Walternate in his office. At Bishop Dynamics. In this universe, Massive Dynamics never existed, which I kind of like.
Bishop Dynamic. Where is Nina?
Obviously, Nina, wherever Billy is, or Willie is, Nina is.
Oh, you think he's got something going on with both Ninas? Each Nina and each AU?
Who knows?
Maybe he's the little black dress. Maybe I've been wrong this whole time. Oh no. I'm gonna have to rethink my whole idea. Are we at? I feel like we're at one more things. Was there more on this last episode?
No, I think that those were the most important points of the last episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't think it was necessary either. It felt like filler because it was like we couldn't get Peter and Olivia for this.
I wasn't
day,
but filler is fine.
Yeah. I wasn't upset by it. It gave us some backstory. I enjoyed all the Olivia parts of it, but I think you're right, Nella. Like, if they had lifted Peter right out of the episode and it had just been about Olivia
you would have lost
and the Cortexiphan trials, then I think it would have been a better episode.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could still have had Peter in the episode, just like you set up at Raiden Lake, and it just being like, look at these two different flavors of child abuse. Yeah.
What's everyone's one more thing? I'm going to struggle a little bit because mine was going to be Reiko, but we've already mentioned Reiko.
Oh, sorry.
how uncomfortable she made me feel.
Yeah.
How about I talk about Agent Farnsworth and Frank?
There you go.
There we go.
That's a happier ending anyway.
Yeah.
Because when Frank and Olivia, when Dr. Boyfriend and Agent Farnsworth meet, Dr. Boyfriend is just immediately catches on to how good Agent Farnsworth is at her job.
Oh, yeah.
And how indispensable she is to the Fringe office, and does not hesitate in singing her praises, which makes her hugely uncomfortable, but also really, really happy. Yes. And I think Jessica Nicole does such a good job of holding both of those emotions in her face.
Like, nobody compliments me like this. This is weird.
And it was beautiful, and I loved it.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
it.
no,
That's my one more thing.
You know, once Frank gets over the heartbreak, I think you should ask out that nice Agent Farnsworth.
Astrid deserves Frank.
I know. Frank would take such good care of Astrid. Oh, my God. He would just treasure her so much.
He literally says to her, I don't know how much they pay you here, but I need you in my life.
Now, where are all those fics? Where's the fix of this dinghy? Because this should be a battleship and everyone needs to ship it. Oh, no. I don't know if I have a one more thing.
I have a lot of questions about how Zeppelin travel works. I have questions about the ticket prices. I have questions about how many Zeppelins dock at the Empire State Building every day. There's not a lot of space up there for docking, but then I'm assuming the Zeppelins don't carry that many people. So, like, I'm assuming there must be, like, multiple dock points throughout the city to sort of compensate for all the Zeppelins. I want to know about, like, how many issues have we had in this universe of, like, Zeppelin strike? Like, because, like, I mean, I know where are we seeing them fly? Like, there's not enough of them in the air to justify what I'm sure the travel cost for operating a Zeppelin would be.
Definitely not.
No, there's no way. Again, like, optics before all, they must be so ungodly expensive. And fundamentally, they're gonna be they're gonna be so much slower. They're slow.
Wait.
They're steady, but they're slow.
I have a really silly question that perhaps we don't have time for.
Okay, hit me.
What powers a Zeppelin, and is it different than what powers an airplane?
Well,
I
yes.
thought it was helium.
What if the writers were like, well, clearly they just don't have airplanes in this universe because whatever it is that powers airplanes or that we use to build airplanes just no longer exists in this universe. And so travel is just slower. You must go either by Zeppelin or boat.
Oh, God. Oh, God. You know what? That's why we don't talk about a lot of different countries or anything.
You just can't go to them.
Can't go to them.
Yeah.
They're going to go to
It would take
Annapolis on
days.
their marriage-saving proposal weekend. And I do not mean this as shade on Annapolis, but is Annapolis.
Yeah.
They're going to go to their favorite crab shack and play their favorite songs on the jukebox because that is the furthest trip that they can go.
Yeah.
I'll buy it.
I mean, it's entirely possible. I'm pretty sure it's helium or hydrogen.
Well, no, that's what makes them float. But to actually propel
but what makes them?
I mean,
That's what I'm asking for.
I mean, I would assume it would be a gas engine, but now you've got me thinking because something's got to be spinning those giant fans, and we all know. I mean, so the Germans were really big on hydrogen, which is why once the Hindenburg went down, that kind of killed the hydrogen market for Zeppelins because not great. And Americans were really into using helium, but you just can't have as big of a Zeppelin with helium, I believe. And that's like sort of the problem where we can still have like the one Zeppelin that goes around to games and things, but not like cross-Atlantic travel like the Germans were doing. Hang on. Now now you. Ooh. What?
Now,
Listeners,
Nella will
in real
research
time,
this for
Nella
the rest.
goes down the rabbit hole.
For the rest,
Yeah.
and you can, if you listen very carefully, you can hear the squeaking of the hamster on the wheel. No, wait, let me do my one more thing before you
Okay, do
continue.
your one more thing.
My one more thing is how hilarious Nick was after
Yes.
Olivia basically set him on fire. I don't think she thought it was very funny, Dr. Walter. Didn't she like our game? I was like, there was fire all around you, Nick. Are you okay? Not a scratch on him. He's fine. But like, wow.
I think Nick is honestly so cute for that entire
know.
episode where he's like worried about Snuggles and how's he going to get there. And Walter just gently puts Snuggles on his feet without saying a
I
word. It's
know.
such a teacher moment, actually.
Yeah.
I know.
It's so weird. I mean,
When
it's
Nick like waves at her
sweet
through the
but weird.
window.
I
Yeah.
know. Nick was such a cute. Whoever they got to play young Nick was adorable. And
Yeah,
it was
it was.
just really, really good at his job.
Yeah, agreed. I have one more thing to my one more thing.
Yes, go ahead.
So Zeppelins were propelled by gas. Blau gas. It was the advantage was that the weight of blau gas was near that of air, and it was an artificial illuminating gas similar to propane,
Oh.
Oh.
and that's what they used to propel, like at least the long distance Zeppelins.
Well, there you go. That's my headcanon.
Solid. Yeah.
Thank you for allowing me to look that up.
Anytime, Nella, that's what we're here for. But I do think we are actually legitimately out of time. So.
Oh, yes. I mean, that's a really good stopping point for this episode anyway. So, with that, listeners, we would love to hear from you. Please check us out at Binge O'Clock Pod on Twitter and Facebook, where you can answer the question, pause, because I must read this one. It is a little on the long side. Where you can answer the question, if you could bring back one recently extinct species, but you had to murder people in order to do it, would you? Why or why not? You can also email us at bingeoclockpod@gmail.com. And don't forget, we have a Patreon. Find us at patreon.com/clockpod.
That's right. And tell your friends, tell your family, tell your loved ones. Tell the live lobsters in your life about Binge O'Clock, and we will see you next time. I almost said Zeppelin.